So Native is effectively a farm table restaurant, truly seasonal, dictated to by what is grown in the gardens and what we can forage in the fields surrounding the Netherwood Estate. We look to create food based on nostalgia, what I enjoyed eating as a child, what evokes memory, and to reinvent the forgotten flavours of the British countryside effectively. So my name is Ivan Tisdall-Downes. I'm the Executive Chef and Creative Director of Native Restaurant. So we're out in the fields and hedgerows surrounding Native Restaurant. We're on the lookout for some wild brambles and crab apples in order to make our fermented berry Char Siu to go with one of our little duck snacks that starts the tasting menu. So yeah, these are slow berries, which are unusually earlier by the looks of it this year. I don't normally expect to see this kind of late September, October, nearing up to when the first frosts come. Obviously, eating them by themselves is a no-go pretty much. But they are, one of the first things I ever learned to forage when I moved out of London with my family, and it always holds a dear place in my heart, these little berries. So growing up for me, foraging wasn't a thing at all. I didn't know anything about wild food. But when my parents moved down to the countryside and I followed them down there, it became, something for me to do. It was entertaining. It was a way of cooking with ingredients that were unusual. I couldn't afford to go and buy truffle oil and caviar from Waitrose. So I'd go out into the fields with the dogs and pick these berries, and it became the foundation of what nature's all about, how to, find these forgotten flavours of our countryside, how we can use them, how you balance the flavours of forage food, which tend to be normally bitter because it's a natural defence mechanism. Foraging is a great way to plan our menu. It dictates to us what we serve, when we serve it. And at the same time, it's really good and not putting a stress on the food chain, stress on the suppliers. We collect stuff when they're in abundance, and we try and ferment, preserve, dry as much as we can for the later seasons when we have less produce in the garden. This is the crabapple tree. The crabapple tend to be wild apple trees, effectively, that are crossbred, I guess mutations, for lack of a better word, of the cultivated apples. They're a lot more sour, again, like the cider apple. This is a really good base for our wild berry Char Siu. Helps bulk it out, gives a bit more acidity. So this is the kitchen garden at Native. At the moment, we're sourcing probably about 80 to 90% of our produce from this garden. We really let this garden dictate to us what we serve on our tasting menu and on our sort of shorter Sunday menus. We've been working with the gardeners on the estate for about 5 or 6 months, 3 months before opening up, just really determine what we want, how much we want. We're really looking into growing a few different unique ingredients, such as the flaming barrel beets that you don't find everywhere else. So for us, it's really important to maintain this garden, as it's going to see us through the barren months, and it's really important that we let the garden dictate to us what we serve on our menus throughout the seasons. So we just got back in from foraging. We've got our crab apples, slow berries. I've managed to miraculously find a few blackberries on the way into the kitchen. We're going to ferment this basically to make our Char Siu sauce. So fermenting, the way we do this is keep it as a kind of dry ferment, let the salt draw the natural juices out of the fruit and apples, creating a kind of really intense flavour from the berries. And as I said, in the field, the kind of apples give it a bit of roundness, a bit of balance, a bit of acidity. Once it's fermented, after 3 days, we're going to mix it with a few other spices, some honey and some sugar to make that kind of nice glossy Char Siu sauce, sort of sweet, sour, smoky, all the flavours we need. So we got about 340 grams of fruit there. It's going to be about 7 grams of salt, I hope, quick maths. So I'm going to massage the salt in, add this to a backpack bag. We use a biodegradable backpack bag, which are great. They kind of tend to struggle when you're cooking at higher temperatures, but for stuff like this, they're perfect. And then, as I said, the salt will draw out the natural moistures, and we'll leave it to ferment. So here we have a previous batch of the fermented berries and apples. These have been fermenting over the weekend for about 4 or 5 days now. So we're going to add this into the blender and blitz it down. With that, we're also going to add some of our 5-spice, which includes the hog seeds that we forage on our walk, some brown sugar, soy sauce, red wine, and honey. Then we'll blitz this together, and then it's ready to massage into our duck legs. So you can see the idea is that traditional red colour you get in Char Siu pork, the Chinese restaurant, we've tried to mimic that using the berries, the various berries, to give it that kind of same tinge, maybe a little less synthetic. So these are the duck legs removed from the duck that we use for our main course. So what I'm going to do is take the bones out, which is optional, but you either do it before or after. I personally like to get them out now. Then we're going to massage the berry Char Siu, leave it for a few hours, and then into backpack bags. So we're going to put the duck Char Siu into the water bath, 68 degrees for about 6 hours. Okay, so now we have our sous vide duck leg that's been marinated in the Char Siu. I'm going to add this back into the Char Siu again, which I've strained and reduced down. It's including a little bit of duck stock and the marinade and liquid from the bag. I'm going to keep all that flavour locked in. And from there, we're just going to slowly cook it over the embers. We want some smoky flavour. Don't want to go too hard and fast. So reheating that duck slowly. Want the fat to caramelise, the sugars to come out, caramelise. We cook too quickly, it's going to burn. But we want some of those little crispy crackling bits that is recognisable in Char Siu. So we're actually cooking over local Hereford applewood charcoal here. It's made in Hereford, about 15 miles away. It's about a half-hour drive, and they make a wonderful charcoal from wood from the trees like we saw in our own orchard. So that's all the elements of the dish done. So now I'm ready to plate up. First off, we have the shiso leaf, picked from the garden this morning. On top of that, we're going to place the Char Siu duck leg, a little bit of our Netherwood rapeseed emulsion, 2 petals from the calendula, it's coriander flower, and finished with one of our house pickled gherkins. And there we have our fermented hedgerow berry Char Siu with shiso leaf and Netherwood rapeseed emulsion. And it's important to work towards being zero waste, but to make it approachable to everyone. We could buy biodigester and a glass crusher and all this fancy machinery, but that's not going to trickle down to the consumer at home and effectively won't have an effect on our environment. So for us, it's important to be able to do stuff like eradicate cling film that doesn't biodegrade, single-use plastics, teach people how they can use carrot tops in a photo bin or eat broccoli stalks, and and put that in a luxury fine dining setting as well. It hasn't got to be deemed as waste. It's just about re-educating and rethinking about that produce that we have. Fixing the food chain needs to be connected to the country, to connect the countries to the cities. We need to look at how we supply the cities with produce from the countryside and how these kind of restaurants can work in unison. So we can have a restaurant in the country and a restaurant in the city, and we kind of work off each other's waste and produce, then that's the dream, really. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my berry Char Siu and duck dish. Like and subscribe to the staff canteen and click here for more videos like this.